Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to HJN in the Legacy of Supers. So what I got here today is yet another villain, of course. But this villain is yet another from the DC Universe. And I have talked about quite a few of them from the DC Universe. But hey, the Marvel Universe and DC Universe are just that enormous, with different variety of villains to look at, and with a huge selection to talk about. This eventually comes down to one that I pretty much said that I was going to talk about later, which is now. And that would be Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. Yeah. Because after all, this is a villain that I pretty much know absolutely well out of all Batman villains out there. Aside from a few others out there, like the Joker, and some others here and there. The Penguin, of course, is just one of those that I know so well from like any series so far, from any film, whether it's live action or animated. It just goes to show that one of these villains that make multiple appearances can pretty much show that there really is a lot to talk about. So what can I say about the Penguin? Well, I can say for sure that there are, in fact, quite a few things that I could highlight already. Being that the Penguin has made an appearance in a lot of television shows, films, and the like, including The Adventures of Batman and Robin from 1968, just like with Mr. Freeze, and a few others here and there. Not to mention Batman the Animated Series, as well as The Batman from 2004, not to mention the Arkham series of video games, and let's also not forget about the Tim Burton live-action Batman films from the 80s and 90s. Because, of course, Batman Returns from 1992 was pretty much one of the films that I got to know about the Penguin so well. Because, first of all, actor Danny DeVito was picked to play the role of the Penguin in that film at the time. And then, of course, there eventually came some of the others here and there. In The Batman from 2004, which was yet another time where I got to know about the Penguin firsthand, who, in that series, was portrayed by actor Tom Kenny. I mean, yeah, this is a person of 1,000 voices, so the Penguin from The Batman 2004 was one of those. And there's a handful of other voices that Tom Kenny made that I could pretty much show off already, but that'll be kind of a off-track thing, so let's just move on. Then, of course, came the Batman Arkham series of video games, which was one of the most recent affiliations of the Penguin that I got to know about, as actor Nolan North, who you might already recognize from some shows and films, as well as video games, such as the Uncharted series, the Transformers franchise, and some others here and there, was picked to play the role of the Penguin in Arkham City in 2011. Now I tell you, Nolan North's voice is personally my favorite out of all the ones that were picked to play the Penguin, because, I mean, that was just incredible. Nolan North's signature sort of vocal flair that you'd pretty much recognize in any way possible, especially when yelling. I mean, you could definitely tell that it's Nolan North behind the microphone when it comes time to voice the Penguin. I know I could. Because North's got one of those distinctive voices that makes it easier to recognize. And I will say for sure that, well, I'm a really big Transformers fan and Uncharted fan, because I did have the original trilogy of the Uncharted series. But it was only in recent times that I was eventually able to play Uncharted 4 and Uncharted The Lost Legacy. But eventually there's going to be an Uncharted 5. And as for Transformers, well, Nolan North voiced Smokescreen in the Prime series, and of course came back into the Cybertron series of video games, where we would eventually hear Nolan North in Fall of Cybertron, for example, where Cliffjumper, Bruticus, and a couple other characters would be voiced by Nolan North at that time. But going back to the Penguin, per se, a lot of Penguin's abilities would include a giant umbrella, which can also act as a gun of some sort, This umbrella would also allow Penguin to glide down, kind of like Mary Poppins. And of course, well, Penguin's small size. It's not really something to talk about so well, man. Don't blame me. But anyways, there's a pretty big variety of others out there, like penguin bombs, and plenty of other things around here and there, including a submarine. A submarine that pretty much just looks like a giant penguin. A handful of other abilities here and there are there as well, but they're pretty much more obscure compared to some of the others. Well, anyways, that's pretty much just the penguin right there. And there really isn't too much for me to talk about the penguin in general, but you know what? It just goes to show that even a really popular villain, man, it's kind of an overwhelming series of things to talk about. So, of course, that's pretty much where I'm going to be ending this whole thing here and there. So if you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.